There's enough room in the human memory for 300 years of television.
Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. I love my little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a big bow wow 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 wow.
Hello, and welcome to the Mochiverse. I'm Linette,
And I'm Skip.
and I don't think I've gotten to 300 years of television yet, but I'm pretty sure my brain has every minute of me watching television still in there. How about you?
Did you know that old milkmaids never die?
What?
They just kick the bucket.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's it, folks. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Okay, bye.
That's good. That's very good.
Yeah.
Well, hello, folks. It's another week of goofiness from your favorite father and daughter team. We're gonna go on the trivia thing again, or we're gonna go on the random facts train again. We're having fun with this, so I thought we'd keep going with it. And my first fact that I started the episode with, I thought was really interesting. And I did a little bit of extra research on it, not much, but it does say that the human brain, this is an article from Scientific American. It
Mhm.
does say that the human brain consists of about 1 billion neurons. Now, if each neuron forms about 1,000 connections to other neurons, accounting to more than a trillion connections. And if each neuron could only help store a single memory, then you might run out of space. You might have only a few gigabytes of storage space. But neurons combine so that each one helps with many memories at a time, exponentially increasing the brain's memory storage capacity to something closer to around 2.5 petabytes, which is like a million gigabytes. So if your brain worked like a digital video recorder, 2.5 petabytes would be enough to hold 3 million hours of TV shows. So you'd have to leave the TV running continuously for more than 300 years to use up all that storage. And
Oh,
I found that fascinating. And it's interesting how when it's talking about how the connections work with each other, because
mhm.
that's how people can organize their brains, how they can create. I don't know if you've ever heard of a mind palace.
Okay.
So a mind palace is like a memory technique that people use where in order to remember things, they visualize a palace or a house, and each room in the house, you can visualize what it looks like. And if you can associate something you want to remember, like a person's name or a date or an event, with an object in that room, then your mind is always going to be associated with that. So if
Oh,
I
okay.
wanted to remember like your birthday, I would make an association with it, like a can of Dr. Pepper on my table. So then if I was forgetting your birthday, I'd say, hold on, let me go into the living room. And what's in my living room? The can of Dr. Pepper. Oh, yeah, yeah, I remember the birthday now. So
Hmm.
it's very interesting. And I guess if you train your brain enough, you can remember anything.
I believe that to be true. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And I mean, your brain and my brain, when it comes to associations, does kind of the same things where we will say something and it'll make us think of something else.
yep.
That happens to me constantly. I'm at work and all of a sudden I think about a line from a TV show. And the
Mhm.
good thing about it is one of my coworkers, one of the pharmacists I work with, has the same kind of association, and he also has watched all those same obscure old TV shows and movies. I'll just say a line from a movie, and he's like, "Oh, that's from that movie," you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I forget one of them we did kind of recently. Somebody at work was teasing, like he was just being friendly with a customer, and he
Mhm.
was like, "Come back, come back." And I was doing something else, and as soon as he said, "Come back," I said, "I was gonna make espresso." And the pharmacist laughed. He's like, "Young Frankenstein."
Yeah. 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 It's amazing how you get those associations. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many muscles you think you have in your fingers?
In your fingers, all my fingers put together, there's probably like, oh man, there's probably a lot because they all wrap around and there's tendons and everything attached to them. I
There
don't know,
are
like 100.
there are no muscles in your fingers.
Wait, there's no muscles in my fingers?
Nope.
They all in my
Basically,
hand?
there are none at all. control of your fingers is all in your arms. Look at your fingers are like the ends on the end of a puppet string.
Right.
So if you look at your hand and move each one of your fingers and look at your arm
Yeah.
and watch on your arm and
Watch
what's
the
moving.
tendons. Yeah, the tendons. So I was
Tendons.
associating tendons with muscle.
That's right. So there are no muscles in your fingers. It's surprising, that that's the case, but it's true. So
That makes total sense because
yeah,
it's all
I,
little tendons, little elastic bands that
yeah. I wasn't able to do it, but according to something I had read, it just said that two of your fingers, your middle finger and your ring finger,
Mhm.
are attached to each other. In other words, they
Right.
work together. They're the only two fingers that don't work separately. But I couldn't prove that by, doing, there was an exercise they talked about doing, and I just couldn't prove it.
Yeah, my middle finger works fine by itself, and I'm not just saying that to be rude.
Well, that's the thing that,
I'm like
so
moving it by itself.
yeah, and that's the thing that surprised me. I think what it was something like you put your middle finger under your hand, and then you try to lift according to what it says that the two of them work together, but I couldn't see that.
Right. Yeah.
So it also associated with this is like a commonly repeated factoid is that the tongue is the strongest muscle in the body,
Oh yeah.
and it's not. It tongue has 16 separate muscles, not one. And even if they're taken together, they just not the strongest. The strongest muscles is the gluteus
I was
maximus.
just gonna say that, but I was gonna
Yeah,
be joking. Yeah.
yeah, it's the gluteus maximus, or your tricep, or your quadriceps on your thighs.
Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I was thinking like, yeah, my ass is pretty strong, but in seriousness, I think your legs would do most of the work.
yeah, and this is and even more powerful muscle is in the uterus,
Yeah.
and it weighs under 2 pounds. During childbirth, it can exert enough downward force, 400 newtons, which is 100 times as strong as gravity and equivalent to the power of a fully extended longbow.
That makes sense. You need
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you
Or,
need it. You
you
absolutely
might
do
need it
need that
at
if
some
you've had
point.
childbirth. Yeah. So, how's that for a wacko wacko?
That's pretty cool. No, that's awesome. I love all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is what I thrive on. You know this.
Yeah,
Yeah, the human body is fascinating. Did you ever see that exhibit that one guy did? I think he was German.
it's all muscles and stuff.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's kind of controversial.
Hmm.
Um, and some people find it too disturbing to go to, but I went to it in Boston, and basically, these were donated bodies, and he used a process called plastination. I think he basically preserved all the bodies in like a polymer type of thing.
Oh,
And so he did different things with them, and a lot of them are, I think it was called like, bodies in action. A lot of them are in the process of doing something. Like he has some of them like playing sports, like tennis and stuff.
mhm. Yep.
And these are like bodies with no skin. And you
Yep.
could see muscles and veins and tendons and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's just like a body like playing tennis. And it's meant to be not just a work of art, but it's also meant to show you like how your body works. And some of them can be, and he has some of them in some gruesome positions. And a lot of people are really disturbed by it. But I mean, all these people's bodies were donated, and the contract that they had to sign specifically talked about what he was going to be doing. So
Right.
I don't have any problem with
Was
it.
that an exhibit? Was just at the Museum of Science, or was it a traveling
It was a
exhibit?
traveling exhibit. I saw it.
Okay.
It wasn't at the Museum of Science. I saw it at the time it was living somewhere near Faneuil Hall.
Hmm.
And I mean, it was, it was like $35 to get in. It was pretty pricey.
Mm.
And it travels all over the world. So
Right.
I don't know where it is currently, but it's in multiple places. And they had one exhibit on there that was like all of your nerves. It just took out just the nerves out of a body and had them all
Yeah.
lined up. And it had all kinds of, I mean, just everything you can think of. But
Mm.
some of it was a little bit kind of kooky to look at. I could imagine if somebody's really like, you know.
Yeah, I think I've seen. They probably did a on one of those shows, and they did a story about it. And so I've never seen it in person, but even not seeing it in person, I would think it would be kind of disturbing to look at.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
because they're real
uh,
bodies that you're looking at.
right, right. So,
Yeah, it is really cool though. If you're interested in medical stuff, if you're interested in anatomy and you're
mhm,
not easily grossed out,
yeah.
it is pretty cool. I kind of liked it, but yeah, something to see. Okay, this isn't about the it's kind of about the brain. It's about behavior. So I read, this is another one of my cool factoids, type A and type B personalities. You know what those are?
Yep.
Um, they were made up by a tobacco company.
Really.
Yes. And this is another one of those many stories. We could do a whole episode on things in our lives that are only here because of advertising agencies.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly made up by a tobacco company, but it was funded by a tobacco company. So these two cardiologists, Meyer Friedman and Ray Rosenman, they did research that laid out two basic personality types. So, type A personalities, which are described as ambitious, driven, competitive, impatient, time conscious, uh, and type B personalities, which are described as more relaxed, patient, less driven. And they did this whole big study on them. But the study was funded by Philip Morris
Hmm.
because Philip Morris were looking for a way to advertise tobacco in a psychological way. Because by the time that they did this, and I did not note the year, but I can imagine, uh, by the time that they did this, it wasn't enough anymore to say that, 9 out of 10 doctors smoke camels or whatever, or
Yeah.
whichever Philip Morris does. So they funded the personality type study in order to prove to their customers that they really weren't to blame for maybe not being able to quit smoking because it was ingrained in their personality.
See, that's pretty interesting to hear that it came from a tobacco company,
Hmm.
because my first thought went to thing that went around so the how to deal with difficult people,
Hmm.
and it's a seminar, and it's
Right.
I think a 1 or 2 day seminar which I went to. One of the things they talk about is the personalities, type A, type B, type, whatever,
Yeah.
and type A personality is just really quickly, type A personality is like you say to them, I have a problem. Next thing they know is like they spread their arms clear out to them. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Push you out of the way and
The
take care
ones
of it.
in
That's it.
charge. Right.
They're in charge. And how to deal with difficult people. That seminar was basically how to deal with each of these different personalities and how to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. But it's to me that's fascinating, and it comes from the tobacco company, that they would have done that as a rationale for selling cigarettes. So
Yeah. And I mean, advertising, which is why I think it would be a really good subject for an episode. Advertising is such a powerful, powerful thing. Uh,
mhm. Yep.
Not just for Americans, but very much so for Americans. It literally dictates so much of our life because these advertising people, they really do their homework as far as the human psyche.
Oh yeah.
They know what'll work for people. And a lot of times, I mean, I've talked about this with you before. Many of the products that were geared towards personal hygiene, healthcare products, those kind of things, a lot of those were geared towards shame
Mhm.
and specifically women and the woman's need for fitting in or being accepted, loved,
Yeah.
admired.
Right.
Because I see so many advertisements from like the 50s and 60s and earlier that say, like, he's never going to kiss you with that breath, and they come out with Listerine,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
know,
No, no,
and deodorant
it
and
yeah.
razors and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, if you take the time to analyze it. You can go to a grocery store, and the grocery store is set up. It's set up to get you to buy stuff,
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
even
set
where
up
they put everything.
specifically. It's where they put everything on what shelves, what color is the packaging. It goes on and on and on, and nauseum.
Oh
But it
yeah,
does.
well, yeah,
It
and even the concept of planograms, which I assume you know what planograms are. In the retail space, planograms are like a section of a store
Mhm.
you get like basically a blueprint for that section, and this is where you put all the products. And
Yep.
those planograms change constantly. And they do that on purpose so that people will have to look around a little bit for the things they're looking for, and also to make room for new products and take out old products, things like
Yeah.
that. But, I'm constantly trying to help people find things. I said, oh, they changed the planogram again. Like they moved this all the way over here because, they want you to stick around for a few extra minutes.
Well, yeah, they want you to walk up and down the aisle,
Hmm.
looking for what you're looking, your product, whatever your product is. And while you're there, you happen to go by and, oh, look, it isn't that nice. I got there. I'd like to
Hmm.
have one of those. It's funny, it's that way, but we still, I won't say lapse into it, but we still do it. I try to avoid those kind of things. But the way a store is set up, you walk in a store, and it actually surprises me when I'll go into a grocery store or something, and they don't have the pastries right there,
Yeah.
right at the entrance. I'm saying, wait a minute, you're not thinking about this the way every other grocery store thinks about it.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well,
it's like the candy counter on the way out. So
exactly. All the
yeah.
impulse purchases. Well, and actually, like, I'm sort of half joking, but I'm kind of convinced that because so many people come down to Florida from up north, I'm convinced that they purposely changed the planograms of grocery stores to not put the baked beans in the same aisle as the ketchup like they do at Market Basket.
Yeah, yeah,
I can't find when I first moved down here, I couldn't find anything because stuff was in such weird places
yeah,
compared to
yeah,
what we do in Massachusetts. And I'm
yeah.
like, they know we all come from here and they want to do it differently on purpose so that we'll have to look around a little bit and see, no, 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 you could buy this weird product that we have down here that you never heard of up north.
Yeah, it's like I'll give you what I think is for instance is in a grocery store up north. There's one section you would have sauces, ketchups,
Yeah,
condiments, stuff like that. They'd all be in the same spot, and with them you would have the marinades
yeah,
and all the other things that all those types of products. Well, the other day I was looking for a specific marinade. It's a specific company. And there was a section where the condiments were, and they had, from this company, they had dressings or salad dressings.
yeah,
And then in another section, they had the marinades completely separate. And I'm thinking, that's not the way we used to do it up north.
yeah. They put
And
the
it,
marinades with the barbecue sauce down
right,
here.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, it just throws you off completely as to what we were used to up north. And maybe, that's our problem, not their problem. But
No.
uh
Well, I
yeah,
know, but Richard's always saying I complain too much about what's not down here. But
yeah.
I like literally, there's no I don't understand why. And I know we have a lot of Italians up north,
Mhm.
but why down here is there like only three different shapes of pasta?
Yeah,
They have like, and I was telling Richard this. I'm like, they have, down here, they get spaghetti, maybe linguine, they got macaroni, and like if you're really super lucky, there's like the bow ties,
right.
maybe, and they have like lasagna. Up north, the whole aisle, it's like a million different kinds. You got
Yep.
wagon wheels, you got
Yeah, Fusilli, all the other stuff. Yeah.
yeah, all the really cool ones. You got
Yeah,
the big macaroni noodles, which I used to make the American chop suey, and now
yeah,
I have to make it with the small macaroni noodles. It's not the same.
yeah.
And I don't care. I don't care who says it. They're wrong. Pasta shapes taste different from each other. You and I said this
Yep.
on the phone like last
Mhm.
week, earlier in the week. The shape of pasta makes a difference to how it tastes.
Oh,
But
sure it
anyway.
does. Yeah, yeah.
And they don't even have like pastine down here.
You're right. I don't even notice that, but you're right. It's there was used to be there's radiatori, and you can't
Yeah.
find that down here.
They only got one
I
kind of ziti. They just have ziti, but or penne. It's like
Yeah,
either penne or ziti. Like, no, those are two different things. Like, what's wrong
right.
with you?
Yeah,
No different sizes of anything. They don't have much angel hair down here either. Like, what the heck?
yeah.
And half of them are from there. Why don't they bring it with them? Come on, people. Listen, if you're moving to Florida from Massachusetts, bring some angel hair with you. Bring some wagon wheels with you. I miss my wagon
Yeah,
wheel pasta.
it's funny. There is. It's interesting you say that about Richard because that's sort of the same thing that we found when we first moved down here. Was there were certain things we were used to finding. It's like the other day, and I don't remember if I told you this, but when up north, if you would have, we could have hot dogs, beans, and brown bit.
Yeah.
You cannot find brown bit down here.
No, I had to buy it on Amazon and I made
That's exactly,
yeah.
and
They have it at a
fairly
couple of stores, but not many.
fairly recently, we Sue had found it and she bought it. She bought 2 cans of it, and it's like, man, this is something we're used to finding up north. I think some is easily explained, like Hood Milk has was Simply Smart or something like that.
Yeah.
You can't find it down here, or actually you can at Publix, and that to me it kind of makes sense because that's a distribution problem.
Right. That's a
It's,
Boston company. I
yeah,
understand
and
that.
and
Yeah.
so distributing milk, for example, 1,500, 1,700 miles away is just not practical.
Yeah. And you can find Hood milk products maybe, but
Maybe.
you're not going to find Gorelick Farms.
No.
Remember those guys? We used
Yep.
to buy Gorelick Farms. You can't find that down here because they're not as big. They're not going
Right.
to spend the money to ship all the way down to Florida for the two people who are looking for Gorelick Farms milk.
And again, that you can easily deal with that. That's something that you're logically you just say, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just not practical because a unique New England company and not necessarily a big conglomerate. You
Yeah.
know.
That's true. And the ice
Yeah.
cream's like that too. You're not going to
Oh
find
yeah.
Brigham's. No
No.
Brigham's ice cream down here,
No.
but you can get Friendlies.
Brigham's even exists anymore, do they?
Yeah, they still have the ice cream.
Okay.
Um, but like what wasn't Friendlies from up north too? And you can
Yes,
get Friendlies
Friendly's is
down
up
here.
north. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so Friendlies made it.
Well, Friendly's, yeah, Friendly's started out as a small ice cream shop
Yeah.
and soda fountain, I believe, and moved off from there. And I think, yeah, you can find it down here. And we talk about this, like Dunkin' Donuts, eventually moved down to here.
Yeah, they
Uh,
sort of made it
yeah,
down here.
yeah.
Yeah. There's like two Dunkin' Donuts in my town, which
Hmm.
is like that's unheard of. That's like
It's
only
craziness.
two.
Well, we know in Haverhill,
Yeah.
there was seven Dunkin' Donuts shops in
They're all on the
Haverhill.
same street. Because you don't want to it's I tried to tell Richard this, it's very true. We don't like taking inconvenient turns. Look, all of the I mean, I could piss some people off by saying this, but all the engineers, what kind of engineer is it that works on stoplights?
Civil
Civil
engineers,
engineers,
yeah.
yeah. All the civil engineers in Massachusetts are made men. because because the lights in Massachusetts are just ridiculous. So nobody wants to take a left-hand turn in Massachusetts because there's no green arrows. You just have to sit there in the middle of the intersection for like 4 cycles of a 3-minute light just to take a left-hand turn. So yeah, there's a Dunkin's over here and there's a Dunkin's over there. Same with the gas
Right.
stations. There's
Yep.
gas stations across the street from each other everywhere in Massachusetts.
Everywhere. Exactly.
I'll
Exactly.
take a right. I'll get this one on the way to work and I'll get this one on the way home.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It would be like, yeah, when I say seven, and it may be even the seven in Haverhill were all owned by the same people.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
yeah.
But they're different, very different. One of them,
Oh,
there's out
yeah.
of those seven, like 3 of them suck, right?
Yes,
You're like, I'm not going to that Dunkin'. That Dunkin' sucks. They all have the same products,
they
but it's
do. But
not true. They suck.
what
That one
happens,
sucks.
actually, I saw it in action in this one Dunkin' Donuts. It was the service was horrible.
Yeah.
And about a few weeks later or something, I noticed this different manager. And within about a month, it was like the most efficient run. It was like every other Dunkin' Donuts. And it turns out that I think they have a core philosophy, Dunkin' Donuts does. And if the franchise does not fit into that core philosophy of dealing with customers, they have their management team send a quote unquote expert down
Right.
there to manage it. And if you sit and listen to it, you would, if you listen to them the way they're treating people and talking to people, I'd want to slap them.
Oh
But
yeah.
but they get results, and
I know.
within a few weeks, it is operating very efficiently and operating the way every other Dunkin' Donuts
I know.
uh, that you come around is operating.
It sucks,
Uh,
doesn't it? Because
it does.
metrics are the bane of my existence, but I
Yeah.
do recognize that they are
Yep.
they are necessary if you have a large company.
You do, and it's like everybody thinks from the outside that when you buy a franchise that you're independent. You are
No.
not. You are you have their corporate philosophy that you have to adhere to, their customer service philosophy,
Yep.
the way of running the business. All of that is unique to that franchise, and that's what when you sign that agreement, that's what you have to adhere to.
Well, and it's because, and it started like, I mean, franchises did not start with McDonald's, but the
No,
philosophy behind the way we do them now started with Ray Kroc, not a nice guy, but
yeah,
he hit the important thing to him was that the way people were starting to travel all over the country, you could go into a McDonald's in one state and go into another McDonald's in another state 2,000 miles away and have the exact same burger,
mhm,
exact same kind of experience. It
yep,
wouldn't be like, well, this one's totally, completely different. It would, I mean, that's the way franchises and that's the way chains have to work. If you have 10,000 stores
mhm.
and you have a name behind it, you kind of have to put things in place so that it's all the same. So like you
You
kind of
can,
have to use metrics and you have to keep an eye on it because otherwise, how do you keep track of 10,000 stores? It would be all chaos.
yeah, it would be,
They'd be doing
and
weird things on their own, like pizza.
yeah, yeah, and the thing is that now there's, as we all know, within businesses, there is a move away from the face-to-face customer experience.
Yeah.
You'll see it now, and I think we stopped at a Wendy's or something like that, and you walk in the door and there's this huge screen
Yeah.
where you choose your product and you place your order. There isn't somebody sitting at a cash register taking your order anymore.
Right. Because
You
that
know,
takes time.
it takes time. So this is, I'm sure they're looking at it as efficient, but there's the growing pains of dealing with technology and all its
Hmm.
quirks. It's the garbage in, garbage out type thing.
Oh
So,
yeah, educating the general public on how to use the technology.
oh yeah,
It's one of the
it's
things I deal with every day. We're
yeah,
trying, but
yeah,
it's very difficult. And
it,
especially with the demographics that I kind of deal with in my line of work. I mean, these
yeah,
are these are all people who are of an age. You
yeah.
know.
True or false?
Hmm.
Uranus was almost named George.
George. I don't know about that.
No, that's true. It's true.
Really? They're naming all the
Uh,
other
the
planets out after like Greek and Roman gods, but they're going to name this one George?
George, yeah. The astronomer who first discovered the planets was English, and he wanted to name it after King George.
Ah, yeah, after
You know,
King. Okay, that tracks. Yeah, that tracks.
so
It's just like every town in Massachusetts or every founding city in all the
yeah,
colonies of the British Empire is named after, George or Charles or Mary.
right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's sort of crazy. When I read that, I said, "Okay, you're gonna say no, no way, it couldn't." I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm naming something George is that we all know as a
As
planet name that
yeah.
we know we're all familiar with.
Yeah,
Uh,
but as soon as you bring kings into the mix, it makes perfect sense. Although it would be kind of fun to, we're going to be discovering more and more planets as we go. It'd be fun to, instead of calling it like H357, we should just call them like Steve.
yeah, anything but Sue.
Anything but Sue. Bill or George. That's
So
good. Hey, another song written by Shel Silverstein. Thank you very
there you
much.
go. Yeah.
That's right.
So the during World War One, Germans disguised one of their cruisers as a British ocean liner.
Hmm.
Yeah. Unfortunately for them, the ruse was discovered when the cruiser accidentally encountered a RMS Carmendia, otherwise known as the exact ship that's disguised as.
Whoops.
Oops.
Did you ever hear about the like the blow up tanks?
Well, they were along those same lines. You know, the French built fortifications
Yeah.
designed to prevent or slow the future German invasion. But what the Germans did, they to overcame it. They just simply went around it. You know, so
Oh, of course. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that was
the blow
like
up tanks. Yeah, that sort of
that was World War
uh,
II, I think.
World War II. Yeah, yeah. During World War II, back to World War II, the Soviets trained anti-tank dogs to plant bombs on German tanks. However, because they had been trained on Soviet tanks, they had the unfortunate habit of targeting only those tanks.
Whoops.
Oops.
Yeah, seems to me they should have commandeered at least one enemy tank. Because dogs are, dogs are like computer programs sometimes. You have to be careful what you put into them.
Yep.
Uh, it's like data. You put the wrong data into it, you might get the wrong result.
And here is one which this when I read this one, I thought to myself, this is something that a certain someone should know about.
Uh-oh.
So between World War One and World War II, the U.S. military drafted plans for a theoretical future war against Great Britain
Yeah.
that included detailed strategy for the invasion of Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean,
Okay, I
they're
don't want to go too far on that one, but I
no,
just
that was fine. I wasn't gonna go into modern stuff. I was gonna go into like old school British stuff
yeah,
because it always fascinates me how they were very concerned about it at the time, but they really dodged a bullet there when King Edward stepped down as king
mhm,
in a snit because he couldn't marry Wallis Simpson.
right. Mhm,
And Wallace Simpson, first of all, she wasn't a very nice person anyway, and she really didn't love him very much. He was
yeah,
obsessed with her, and she was just sort of meh about him. And he's like, I need to marry the woman I love and be happy. And she's like, yeah, I'd like to be queen someday, you know? And so they wouldn't let him, Parliament or whatever wouldn't let him marry her. So he's just like, well, I quit. But it turns out like them being married and them getting together in the first place could have very likely been a strategy by Hitler uh, to get influence on Britain
yep.
because he was such a pushover as a person
Mhm,
and he was such a follower and he did have a certain amount of charisma, but he also was really like very easily influenced by other people's charisma.
right.
Uh, and they literally wanted to take over England through him. And they probably would have been able to if Parliament would have let him either marry her or convinced him to stay, even if he couldn't marry her. And she was a Nazi sympathizer. She like all of her boyfriends were Nazis.
See,
Like
there's another thing, unintended consequences, potential for unintended consequences. Something that seems not too crazy. For one reason, you'd say, "Hey, why not?" But then there are unintended consequences to that particular event.
oh
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So you're gonna like this is a British one. If you're
Okay.
not British, you're out. You're British. American singer Kelly Clarkson.
Hmm.
She produced an opera in 2012 when she was at an auction and she purchased a golden turquoise ring owned by Jane Austen
Oh.
for 152,000 pounds. British culture minister put an immediate export ban on the ring, preventing Clarkson from bringing it home to the United States.
Really?
Yeah, because they felt it was, a British treasure.
Okay. All right. Anybody who, for anybody who knows what the British have done in every country they had control of, they stole so many things and put them in their museums. And all of these countries are trying so hard to get their artifacts back from the British Museum.
Yeah.
From all the stuff that the British Museum stole over the decades from other countries and taken all their culture away. That makes me laugh so much. I hope she keeps that ring. I hope she gets to
Well,
keep it.
actually, she withdrew her ownership.
Oh, for crying out loud.
And that, I think that's unfortunate,
Yeah, they
So,
deserve to lose one thing. They have, Jesus Christ, like half the crown jewels belong to somebody else. You know, like listen, I love British things, but I can't defend the British Empire.
right,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's just Mondo Bizarro. There's some of the things that they would take issue with, you know.
Well, just
So
it's just so ironic because they have so many things that they're refusing to give back to so many
mhm,
different countries.
yeah,
It's like us. It's like us over here with the renaming of places and mountains and things like that.
yeah,
We just won't give them back to we won't give them back to the, indigenous people. We won't give them back to the Native
yeah,
Americans and let them call it what it was always called thousands of years before we got there.
yep, yep. Oh yeah, well that's
But it's ours.
yeah,
We took it. We named it George. Like,
right, exactly. We named it George. So
oh, too funny. Too funny.
yeah, yeah. There is it's all these kind of weird. Something I was also reading about the other day is a big part of American culture is when things, something goes really right and you high five each other.
Right.
And you say, where did that come from? Well, it wasn't even invented until 1977.
Really?
Yeah, the Los Angeles Dodgers player Glenn Burke and Dusty Baker spontaneously slapped hands to celebrate a home run they had just hit, and it became such a thing that everybody started doing it, and now it's so embedded in our culture. High five. We teach our
Yeah.
dogs to high five.
Right,
It's just,
right. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. Well, that's
and
that. Well, it kind of makes sense that that would come from sports, though.
it does make sense that it would come from sports. It's just surprising, even though 1977 doesn't seem recent. Recent. It surprised me a little bit that it was that recent. I might have
Yeah.
thought it would have been before that. And there was one other thing I was reading about, and I'm doing this off the top of my head. It has to do with, and you already know this, but in Roman times in the Colosseum, when they would do a thumbs up or a thumbs down,
Yep. I was just gonna say
uh,
that. Yeah.
and basically there is no record of emperors ever doing a thumbs down to kill people. Basically, it was thumbs up.
Up. Yeah.
And what happened? The reason that it gets so embedded in our culture in terms of seeing it in movies was that I think that when whoever was doing Gladiator or one of those movies had thought that it made more sense to say thumbs down.
It
Uh,
was probably it was probably from Spartacus or something.
yeah, wherever
Um,
it was seen,
yeah.
and yeah, and from then on they said, okay, this plays much better than thumbs up, so they it makes that part of movie culture. Every time you see any film about the gladiators, the empire is always thumbs down
Yeah.
for killing him. And by the way, not a lot of gladiators died. so a lot of them were seriously wounded, but
Yeah.
the ones that died were really, prisoners or Catholics, so whoever was being persecuted at the time, they would throw them in the Colosseum.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, I heard about that, and I heard about how well they were fed, uh,
Mhm.
and because they were champions for the emperor. They were basically fighting in the name of the emperor, so they were uh
Very well fed.
treated
You
well
know,
while they were, enslaved for entertainment. But
Well, and if they and what's interesting is there's conflicting stories about this because basically what I just said that not a lot of them died, but the ones that if they survived whatever term that they decided that they were going to be gladiators, they would be rewarded with land,
right,
and they would become wealthy.
yeah, they got to retire.
They got to retire.
Which is probably the origin of sports people being paid so much money. I mean,
Probably.
entertainment is one of those things that
Right.
everybody wants. So they've decided it's a priority as far as money is concerned. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
In 1949, Mole Hill, West Virginia was renamed Mountain.
Yeah.
So this Mole Hill, West Virginia was an unincorporated community, and it was
Yeah.
probably named after the Mole family who were like native to the area, or not
Right.
native to the area, but they were living in the area. And the name, it was just a little town, like unincorporated, like I said. They didn't, they had a post office, but it was one
Right.
of those things where it's not even really a town. It's just sort of a little area. And so the name was changed as a result of a publicity stunt in 1949. They literally wanted to make a mountain out of a molehill. It's just so funny.
Wow. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, this is completely obviously we're all over the place,
Yeah.
but in England in the 16th century, honeymoon was
Hmm.
referred to the first month of marriage.
Right.
Was seen as a grace period for the newlyweds because the love wanes and the troubles kick in. Today, the word honeymoon is considered positive. Such phrases as honeymoon is over, etc., and so forth, imply that there's difficult times around the corner. Back in the 5th century, many cultures in the world, including the Scandinavians, used the cycles of the moon to make the date of the calendar. One
Right.
moon was equivalent to 1 month, and commonly consumed mead, which was traditional alcoholic brew from fermented honey.
Yes.
And they believed that the mead was an aphrodisiac and increased fertility. And it was frequently required for all newlywed married couples to consume mead every single day for the first month of marriage.
That's right.
Thus, the first month of marriage was known as the honeymoon.
The honeymoon. Yes. That is correct. I do that one. That goes back to pagan tradition,
Right?
Celtic pagan tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I mean, it stands to reason that a lot of cultural traditions do revolve around alcohol.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
alcohol was made very early on in all civilizations. It was
Mhm.
one of the first things that people figured out what to do. I mean,
Yeah.
from hunter gatherers finding fruit on the ground and going, after I ate this fruit, sometimes I would feel a little bit relaxed and funny.
Yeah, well, not only that, they had no TV to watch, so they
No
had to do
TV.
something to submit their hours.
Yeah, they gotta watch each other. Gotta watch each other stumbling around after eating rotten
Yeah.
apples. Uh, and also, bread, of course, another one of the milestones in civilization, came about because of alcohol production. They
Right.
made beer first and then bread second, because bread was made as a result of the beer making process. The yeast that's used in the process. They were like, oh, it's funny. It made this other stuff like, I don't know if they made a dough or something by accident and it rose and they were like, wow, there's so much more bread here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they did it, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I read, that bread making came after beer making, which is,
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it is pretty interesting. I also saw we watch those shows, like How It's Made and How Do They Do It.
Hmm.
It
Yep.
basically they show how they make
Yep.
things.
Yep.
And Novo Nordisk, which is a company that produces insulin, a lot of their insulin is produced using a very particular yeast that has been engineered to produce insulin molecules as it works to ferment. So it like poops out insulin
Oh, wow.
when they feed it. Yeah.
Oh,
And
hmm.
so they produce insulin that way, which is fascinating to me because like, I read about the history of insulin and how it was manufactured in the very beginning. There's a lot of dark history behind
Yeah.
diabetes and behind insulin research. And the guy who discovered insulin and who synthesized insulin for the first time, a lot of dogs died actually, unfortunately, because he was
Mhm.
experimenting on dogs.
Well, yeah, that's usually
Yeah.
that's how they get those. That's how they work through the products.
Yep.
It's like penicillin. Probably, obviously, it was manufactured. What I would say fairly recently, but
Yeah.
penicillin was in a different form, like in from a mold,
Yeah.
was used to treat wounds and stuff on horses and rashes on horses.
Yep.
And so it really, unbeknownst to them at the time, was that they were producing something that was curing stuff, which had worked for them and used in many other different applications but then again started, like we are just saying, used on animals first, that's
Oh, certainly. Oh,
for
certainly.
animals.
Because
Yeah,
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 and in the past we certainly thought a lot differently about animals than we do now.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I mean that, and of course we've brightened up the history a little when we retell it. That if you if you ever went to high school, you learned about Pavlov and
Yep.
his experiments with the dogs, but they really didn't tell you much. It was one chapter. The way they told it was, oh, he had his dog, and then he rang a bell, and then he fed
Right.
the dog. And then over
Yeah.
time, every time he rang the bell, the dog would salivate. His
Right.
experiments were a lot darker than that, actually, with the dogs.
Yeah,
He
I'm
didn't
sure.
just do that. That was not the extent of his experimentation, although that part does work,
Mm.
and he discovered that that does work. Uh, he tortured dogs in order
Yeah.
to find out that he could use the Pavlovian response. So, not exactly. It was a little. It was a little bit cleaned up for the kiddos.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Hey, in talking about animals and sayings that come out like kicking the bucket, do you know where that came from?
Well, that I think that it might be debated, but I know that in some instances it has to do with hanging. In some
Okay,
arguments, it has to do with hanging.
it was many people assume it's kicking the bucket refers to the pail, but in Old English, bucket had another meaning. It
Oh,
referred to a kind of yoke, which was used to hold pigs up in the air by their hind legs while they were being slaughtered.
yeah,
And the yoke looked similar to a pulley. And as the moment that they were dying, they spasmed and moved violently and kicking the bucket as they were trying to get away.
yeah,
So that's sort of,
that makes sense.
yeah. And so farmers started saying, you know, kicking the bucket is a reference to people passing away, is to make light of the news when they were saddened. But on a brighter note, and a different brighter note, the game hopscotch? You
Yes.
know where it started?
No.
Okay. It started it actually dates back to ancient, you shouldn't have known this, Britain, it's, when the Isles were under the Roman Empire. It started as a military training exercise for the Roman soldiers. And the
Oh,
soldiers would run through the courts wearing their full armor and carrying heavy bags to improve their footwork. Children were fascinated by this exercise, so they started drawing up their own smaller courts and making their own rules for the game. The game spread to different countries and across Europe and later to other parts of the world. And that's how hopscotch.
well, that makes sense that kids would emulate what they see, because, when you're seeing Roman soldiers in your village,
Right.
some of the kids would be imitating that. That makes perfect sense.
Yep.
And a lot of especially the way the kids come up with games. A lot of it does have pretty dark origins. I mean, we talked about that before,
Yep.
all the rhymes and all the games.
Mhm.
But yeah, that does definitely track.
Yep.
And I mean, a lot of our sports have origins, especially like football has origins in war strategy.
Yep.
But yeah, that's very interesting. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, that's thought that was a pretty good one. You think hopscotch, it's sort of a, it's a kid's game, but
Yeah, but if you think back to basic training, when you had to
yep,
like run through the tires and stuff or
yep.
whatever,
Oh yeah, going through the
that's
tires.
pretty similar
And
to hopscotch.
and there is a lot of, if you think about, and I think about, because it's going through basic training, I remember it, is the playgrounds, the modern playgrounds, the ones where you
Oh
have
yeah.
the upside, the ladder that you walk hand over hand
Yeah, the monkey
down.
bars. Yeah.
Monkey bars, yeah, that's a basic training thing.
Yeah.
Jump over a wall, that's a basic training thing. Crawl through the mud.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I listened to a podcast, actually, I've mentioned them before, Maintenance Phase, where they talked about the presidential fitness test and
Oh yeah,
the origins of the presidential fitness test. And a lot of it comes from our ambition to create future soldiers,
yeah,
actually. And when you think about the kind of things that you would have kids do in gym classes of our day and of probably your day, a lot
yeah,
of it looks real similar to military training. And that's on purpose.
yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
And it's for a reason. It's for a reason. They wanted these young people by the time they graduated high school to be ready to do the same kinds of things. And a lot of them look an awful lot like getting up and down obstacles and crawling away from enemies and
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
I mean dodgeball. Think about dodgeball. That's like
dodgeball, same one.
trying
Yep,
not to get shot in a war.
that's right. Yep, yep.
Although you wouldn't want to catch the bullets in order to win.
No, no.
But if you catch a grenade and throw it back, I can imagine that would be useful if you can get your timing right.
Wow.
So in 2017, 70 students in Maryland drank so much alcohol at a party that the air in the house registered positive on a breathalyzer. So this would be a surprise to no one. These were members of the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity. So
Uh,
and there were six students. They were arrested after police raided the party, which you can imagine looked like something out of Animal House, right?
yeah,
It was
I'm
just
sure.
absolute chaos. They were charged with 126 counts each of supplying alcohol to minors and face over $300,000 in fines each.
Each.
And the
Wow.
police did say that the air inside the house registered zero point 0.1 on the
Oh,
breathalyzer. And just of note, all of the partygoers were ranging between 17 and 20 years old. None of them were 21, not a
there
single
you
one.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only ones that were over 21 were the frat guys who were running the party because they weren't freshmen.
Uh,
Yeah. So that was fun. Let's see. Would you rather do, I'll give you a choice. Would you rather do an AI one or a cutesy little story?
so cutesy.
Cutesy. Okay. We'll do the AI one next time. The man who invented the plastic garden flamingo dressed in matching clothes with his wife for 35 years. Now, so this guy, and by the way, you think of pink flamingos, you think of flamingos as a Florida thing.
Right.
This guy, his name was Donald Featherstone. He was born in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Worcester. Now, see,
Worcester.
it's how is really it's pronounced in Worcester by
It's
anybody
Worcester.
that's not from
Yeah,
the area.
yeah, they don't understand.
Right.
But and also of note, another town name that is named after a town in England, by the way, just like 90% of Massachusetts towns.
Yes, there's a lot of them.
Yes.
It's like Haverhill. It's like
Yeah, there's a
uh
Haverhill in England as well. It's in Salisbury, Portsmouth, all of them. They're either named after English towns or they're named after bastardizations of Native American words. That's like the two things.
things. Yeah,
Um,
I could always tell people that weren't customers, for example, that weren't from the area when they'd say Haverhill.
or
Uh,
Peabody.
yeah, or Peabody. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy worked in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and he developed the design while he was working for Union Products in 1957.
Oh,
and he won the 1996 Ig Nobel Art Prize for his creation. Do you know what the Ig Nobel Awards are?
Yeah, I can just imagine knowing what
Yeah, it's basically they give you an award for the opposite of great things. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like stupid
Ignobious.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Stupid stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And he later became the president of Union Products. He had 57 pink flamingos in his yard.
Hmm.
And the pink one, by the way, well, they weren't all pink, but the pink
Right.
one is the one that caught on the most. I mean, actually, because flamingos are pink. They're not
Yeah.
born pink, but they become pink.
Pink. Right.
Did you know that, by the way? That
I didn't know that, but it would
yes.
be, I think it, I don't know it
So flamingos are
from,
white, I think. The only reason they're pink is because of their diet. Their diet, I think, primarily consists of a certain like crustacean, like a little shrimpy that they
yeah.
eat, and it's kind of like when you take carnations and put them in water and put coloring in the water.
Yeah.
They're colored by the food that they eat, so
Oh, okay.
they're not naturally pink. The babies aren't pink.
Well, that's like rhinoceros is that they sweat red.
Those are
Uh,
hippos. Hippos.
hippos, yeah,
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 they sweat
and they
pink.
sweat,
Yeah.
but yeah. So,
Yep. So yeah, he and his wife dressed alike for 35 years just because, and by the way, it doesn't say anywhere why. It just says that they did.
he
It doesn't say why, it just says that they did.
did,
Um,
yeah.
and yep, he retired from Union Products in 2000. He died in 2015. And people still leave pink flamingos on his gravesite.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's a cutesy story.
it is a cutesy story. So,
Break a leg in theater.
oh yeah.
Where
Well,
that
you're
came, do
not
you know where
supposed to
that came
say,
from?
well, I know you're not supposed to say good luck.
Right. Well, yeah, all the performers are superstitious, so they
Yes.
believe that wishing somebody good luck would jinx them. At first, they would avoid expressing it altogether. In the same era, the audience would often bang their chairs on the floor instead of applauding.
Yeah.
The more they liked the performance, the more they banged their chairs, which would often result in someone breaking the leg off a chair or two. Soon,
Oh.
someone figured out a way to express a wish that sounded negative but really had a positive meaning that only theater insiders would know. Performers started telling each other, I hope you break a leg, which sounded like,
I hope you break your leg.
right. I
Yeah.
meant, I hope you get injured while performing to avoid jinxing the performer. But both parties know that I hope your performance is so well received that the audience member breaks a leg off their chair.
Wow. I like that one.
That's
That's a good
that,
one.
yeah.
So
Just
there's no I wonder what the explanation I wonder what the explanation would be for the from the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, how they used to say tits up every time because
yeah,
tits up.
that's a good question.
Because also tits up. Well, if you think about it, it's funny because they're saying tits up because they're women and stuff like that.
yeah,
But honestly, like tits up is a British expression for basically like falling on your ass
yeah,
and you go tits up. When you go tits up, that means your tits
you
are
failed.
in
Yeah,
the air.
yeah,
And so their expression they use when something goes tits up, it's like when it goes badly and when it goes wrong. So they're almost doing the same kind of thing when they say
yeah,
tits up. They're
yeah,
almost kind of
almost
saying break a leg.
right. Yeah.
And they didn't even try. They didn't even try. They were just trying to say tits.
That's probably all they wanted to do. It's like when I read that, I said, geez, that is fascinating. And it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. But then, like I say, only people in the theater would really know where it came from.
Well, and that's the way they want it. I mean,
Right.
the theater are, yes, number one, very superstitious. They always have been.
Mhm.
And a lot of theaters are said to be haunted as well. But also they are famously very secretive with their stuff and
Yep.
they're sort of like isolationist with their stuff on purpose because if you think about theater kids, because I was a theater kid for a while,
Yeah.
uh you don't really belong anywhere, so you end up being a theater kid.
Yeah.
And so when you find a group, when you don't belong anywhere and then you find a group where you belong,
Yeah.
uh you're going to be a you're going to be a huge gatekeeper for that group. And gatekeeping is like huge in the theater
Yeah.
kid community because like listen, whenever the sports guys want to be in the play
Yeah, yeah,
because they need to do something for their resume or something so that they can get into school with their football scholarship and they need to have an activity besides football and their thing. They're like, "Oh, I want to be in the play." We're
yep,
always like gatekeeping them and being like, "I don't know if you really belong here." Like it's so funny.
yeah,
So funny because we are such outsiders that nobody would let us into their groups.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, theater in particular, very much, you don't get to know our secrets.
yep. There you go.
And they're also quite dramatic, and being dramatic is a big
That's
thing.
yeah, that's
You want to make
goes
something
into
exactly as dramatic as
yeah,
possible. E-
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. And
yeah,
like the play you're not supposed to say the name of, like when you can't. I
yeah,
mean, I'm not in a play right now, so I can say Macbeth.
yeah.
But like you don't want to be like you don't want to be like a theater person saying Macbeth. You're like that Scottish play is what they say. That's very funny. Good stuff. Good stuff. Uh, all right, well, folks, I think we're gonna wrap this one up for this week because I think we've been talking for more than an hour.
Yeah, more than an
It's
hour.
like
Yep,
2:40 or so.
yep.
Um, but I think we're gonna I don't know. We'll either keep this trend going or we'll focus in on one thing specific. I'm not sure yet for next time.
Yeah.
But in the meantime,
Mm,
if you want to shoot us an email, mochiverse@gmail.com, MOCCIAVERSE@gmail.com, or if you can scoot on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us there. You can actually find us on I know a lot of you got the link for the show if you listen to it on one of our recommendations as a family member who maybe doesn't listen to a lot of podcasts, but you can actually find us on Spotify. You can find us on iHeartRadio. We're everywhere you can find podcasts. So if you listen to other podcasts, you can search for us and you can search for us on Amazon. Um, we're everywhere, and you can just Google us if you want to have a little fun with that. We're also on YouTube, believe it or not, uh, but we don't have video on there, just audio.
we had some pretty good nuggets today. So
I think so. I think so. And I
yeah,
still have a lot more. And I'm just going to keep
yep,
adding to my list.
yep,
Now that I know how to use the strikeout feature on Google
yeah,
Docs,
yeah.
I'm very
There you
excited
go.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess all that remains is the remains of my sanity, which is
Dad jokes.
dad jokes.
I had a neck brace fitted years ago, and I've never looked back since.
Oh my God. Very good.
You know, you know, people say they pick their nose, but I feel like I was born with mine.
Okay.
Okay. And why can't a psychiatrist use the bathroom?
Why?
Because the P is silent.
Oh my God.
What do you get from a pampered cow?
What?
Spoiled milk.
Oh, yeah. You might
Yeah,
have done that one before.
I probably did. Uh, did I tell you the time I fell in love during a backflip? I
No.
was heels
I don't.
over head.
Heels overhead.
Yeah. And I ordered a chicken and an egg online.
Yeah. Well,
I'll let you know.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. It takes guts to be an organ donor. I think I've said that one before.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
true though.
yeah. If you see a crime in an Apple store, does that make you an eyewitness?
Oh, I like that one. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I'm so good at sleeping, I can do it with my eyes closed.
Oh my God.
Listen, I was going to tell you a time traveling joke, but you
Yes.
guys didn't like it.
You didn't like it. No. Oh my God. Was that the last one or are there more?
That's the last one. I had
That's
enough
the
pain.
last one. Oh, those are some pretty good ones. All right. I guess we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Oh my God.
Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. I've got a little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a big bow wow.
You got to get that WD-40 for that chair.
Yeah, we got
That's
it.
all right.
We got it. Just every
I
time I
know.
move, I sprayed it, but it doesn't
No,
make
it didn't
any
make any difference.
difference.
That's okay. As long as I'm as long as you're not talking when you do it, I can cut it out. So if it's in between you talking and you're doing it, it's not a problem. But while you're saying something, if you do it, then I can't take it out of the audio. Yeah, exactly. That's the hardest part. All right, well, it's all right. Hey, listen, we're not professionals here. I'm not getting paid. I don't know about you.